This month marks the anniversary of a tragic event here in Indiana state history. Frank O'Bannon, the state's 47th governor, passed away after suffering from a stroke. The state's Lieutenant Governor Joe Kernan was sworn in hours later. It was an emotional ceremony. We'd like to share with you now our newscast from that day. That was September 13th, 2003, showing you the swear-in ceremony and the legacy that Mr. O'Bannon left behind.
To fly back from Chicago, and then she didn't have to do this, to come here to the State House on this incredibly difficult, emotional day to be supportive of Joe Kernan, who is about to take the oath of office as governor. It is just really nothing short of remarkable, and it shows you what a strong person that she is, and she has always put her faith at the forefront and said that's the way she stays strong, and the governor was very, very strong in his faith as well.
And as you mentioned, James Williams was the last governor to die in office in 1880. And before that, it was Governor Ashbel Willard, who died in office in 1860. So it has been, what, 123 years since Indiana has lost a governor in office.
It is now 6 o'clock, and we want to reestablish, for those of you just joining us, a very sad day in the state of Indiana, in the history of Indiana. Governor Frank O'Bannon died today at 11:33 at Northwestern Memorial Hospital in Chicago. This after he suffered a massive stroke 6 days earlier, had bleeding in both sides of his brain. What is about to happen right now is Lieutenant Governor Joe Kernan is about to be sworn in to take the remainder of the governor's term, as the Constitution calls for. And there he is. Let's listen in.
As you all know, we're here on this sad occasion to swear in Lieutenant Governor Joseph E. Kernan as governor of the state of Indiana. Governor, will you raise your right hand and repeat after me? I, Joseph E. Kernan.
I, Joseph E. Kernan.
Do solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear.
That I will support the Constitution of the United States.
That I will support the Constitution of the United States.
And the Constitution of Indiana.
And the Constitution of Indiana.
And that I will faithfully discharge my duties.
And that I will faithfully discharge my duties.
As governor of the state of Indiana.
As governor of the state of Indiana.
To the best of my skill and ability.
To the best of my skill and ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
That's all.
In 1990, I had the opportunity to be with an extraordinary man and woman on a trade mission to Eastern Europe. It was Judy and Lieutenant Governor Frank O'Bannon. And I came away from that experience understanding the sincerity, the compassion, the passion, the commitment to service of those two wonderful people, and we became friends. In 1996, knowing of my reservations to run for lieutenant governor with him, when Frank O'Bannon asked me to run, I accepted without hesitation because of my trust, my respect, and my belief in him and all that he stood for. Today, without reservation, Maggie and I accept these new responsibilities that we have with humility, understanding the great challenges that lie ahead, but also with resolve, understanding that as we work together going forward from here, in the ideals that Frank O'Bannon taught us in his lifetime, that we can do well, that we can do the best for Hoosiers. I have lost my governor and my friend. So too has every Hoosier lost their governor and their friend. Tomorrow, Sunday, I would ask that all over the state of Indiana, we have a day of remembrance, a day of reflection, sorrow, and joy for a life that was lived to the fullest in the service of the people of the state of Indiana, so that every Hoosier could live their lives to the fullest. Thank you all for being with us this afternoon.
You are watching history. Joe Kernan has just become the 48th governor of the state of Indiana, his wife Maggie at his side. We just witnessed not only history but extraordinary grace under pressure as Judy O'Bannon, who lost her husband today, came to support Joe Kernan, came out in public, and watched him be sworn in to serve out her husband's term.
And there is Mary Dieter, the governor's spokeswoman, wearing the brightly colored blouse, moving about, kind of, boy, having to pull all this together, the staffs, in a very short period of time. And she just really showed remarkable poise, a big hug and support and applause from both sides of the aisle. Governor Kernan mentioned immediately, as Kevin Rader joins in the conversation from our newsroom, a meeting and really getting to know them in 1990 on that trade mission, Kevin, when they became friends. And he said he accepts this call without reservation, with humility and resolve. Kevin.
Yeah, he did. You know, it was also, I noticed as the governor walked out of the chamber, on the left-hand side, I couldn't help but notice some press people standing there, print folks who were wiping away tears as the governor walked out.
This is Judy O'Bannon, just amazingly strong today, holding people, accepting hugs, giving hugs. They said that she has been like this all week.
That's a member of the state police force who also worked in the early first term to help protect the governor that she's talking to and comforting there. And as you said, that's what Judy does.
So many people from across the state want to know what they can do. They also feel so strongly about this family. And perhaps the best thing to do is what Governor Joe Kernan just suggested people to do. Tomorrow, a Sunday, he wants people to have a day of remembrance, reflection, sorrow, and he says joy for a life lived to the fullest.
That's Steve Bella, and who worked very hard in the first term of Governor O'Bannon's service and also worked for the re-election campaign in the second. And that was his wife Melanie, who's now head of FSSA, who hugged Judy just before Steve, and now moving on.
You're watching these pictures live. You have a camera right there, and it's just remarkable.
Greeting so many well-wishers. And Rich Van Wyck is inside the Supreme Court chamber still with some more folks there. Rich, are you with us?
Rory, we are in the Supreme Court chambers where Lieutenant Governor, Acting Governor Joe Kernan just became governor. Senator Robert Garton, a leader, a close friend of the people involved, for someone who has an immense amount of responsibilities but immense friendships here. Can you put into words what this day is like?
It's very difficult. Of course, we We pray and support the family, but an entire family called the state of Indiana lost a member of its family, and that was Governor Frank O'Bannon, a gentle man who was governor of the state of Indiana. He absolutely beloved across this state. And as you said, a friend of mine for 33 years. We were elected to the Senate together and had enormous respect for him.
I think many people were surprised to see the now former First Lady, Judy O'Bannon, having the strength, the courage, and grace to be here today. You greeted her. Did she console you, or did you console her?
I think there was mutual at that point, and she has an enormous strength, enormous spiritual strength. When she called the Speaker and me to assure us that the transfer of power was appropriate, her strength gave us strength. A very courageous woman with grace and dignity, and it was no surprise that she was here. That's Judy O'Bannon.
Listening to the governor, Joe Kernan, and that is almost difficult to say at this point. It's so new. I was impressed with the strength and resolve he showed at these trying moments. Were you impressed as well?
Very highly impressed, as well as indicating this was a close friendship with him, too. He not only lost his governor, he lost a very close personal friend. And I do not anticipate any change in state government. It will be very smooth. The Lieutenant Governor is prepared for it. I have full confidence in him.
And do you believe that Monday morning, or how quickly will the search and the confirmation of a new lieutenant governor begin?
The timing is the call of the lieutenant governor, and I have assured him that whoever he selects should be the lieutenant governor. I will work with him as much as possible for that selection, as much as he wants me involved with the process. But regardless, the governor has the right to select his or her lieutenant governor.
Senator Garton, thank you very much for being with us today. Good luck to you, your staff, and your fellow lawmakers.
You did a splendid job of covering it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, and good luck to you. Senator Robert Garton, live from the Supreme Court chambers at the Indiana State House, impressed with the strength, resolve, and grace of former First Lady Judy O'Bannon, but also that of the new governor, Governor Joe Kernan. I think the next week or two are going to be very interesting to watch as the now governor prepares to select his lieutenant governor. I think there was some very assuring words from the senator that he will go along with whomever the governor chooses. That seems to lay to rest that there might be some sort of political battle involved after the next few days, but those are good words of assurances from the senator from Columbus and Senator Pro Tem of the Senate. Reporting live from the Supreme Court chambers at the Indiana State House, Rich Van Wyk, Channel 13 Eyewitness News.
All right, Rich, thanks. And we do want to confirm, as Kevin Rader had told us earlier, that was Supreme Court Justice Theodore Boehm who gave the oath of office.
Frank O'Bannon's very, very dear friend, Chief Justice Randall Shepard, was instrumental earlier in the week in helping make Joe Kernan the acting governor. Right. But again, Ted Boehm did it today, swore in the 48th governor of the state of Indiana. This is the first time since 1880 that a sitting governor has died in office. And though the governor died just today, the state absolutely has to get down to business. And so they wasted absolutely no time, as the Constitution calls for, in swearing in a new governor. And I suspect it won't be long before they get to the business of naming a lieutenant governor. It absolutely has to happen.
Sure.
And it has to happen quickly. Also, state legislators are coming down to the State House at this point. They do need to connect with one another. That is called for in the Constitution, as well, as Robin Winston told us earlier today.
Kevin Rader in the newsroom now with some more thoughts about what we just witnessed.
Yeah, I'm watching Maggie Kernan there, now the First Lady, looking on, and you know, she was out of the country when this transpired and quickly came back to be with her husband, and told me when I talked to her just yesterday of her penchant for travel. But I know now this is not a day that they looked forward to. Theodore Boehm, well, there the tape just went away, did handle that, you guys, but I understand it's because Randall Shepard was maybe out of the state, and so obviously this came up at the last minute, so Justice Boehm stepped in and took over on that.
We're still waiting for the First Lady to come back out of the door. She's obviously greeting well-wishers at this time. Just an extraordinarily difficult time to put on the public face, and yet she has done it. And that's the kind of First Lady she has been all along, in good times and in bad times. She is very much a public person, but she's also a very real person in public, and that is what has endeared her to people.
There's some indication. Go ahead, Kevin.
I was just thinking about, because Ann, you really laid it out very well earlier, I thought, when you talked about her background. I believe she was Phi Beta Kappa. There's also, you know, there was talk that, well, if something like this should happen, could it very well be that Judy O'Bannon might be the one appointed as Lieutenant Governor if she should so choose? I don't know whether that would happen or whether she would even want that to happen, but she's certainly capable, and I don't think that's something we should just lightly pass over tonight. You just never know what's going to happen.
That is true. She's such an accomplished lady in her own right. She graduated Phi Beta Kappa, and she was selected as a Rockefeller Theological Scholar and was the first woman to attend the Louisville Presbyterian Theological Seminary. Of course, right now she is leaning very heavily on her faith and the faith that she shared with her husband and her entire family. They have 2 daughters and a son, and they have taken turns at the hospital up in Chicago, and of course everyone is convening here now.
You know, I just got a statement, you guys, here too. We can keep looking at the pictures from U.S. Senator Evan Bayh. I join all Hoosiers in mourning the passing of Frank O'Bannon. He was a statesman in life, generous of spirit, always focused on the public good rather than self-interest. My thoughts and prayers are with Judy and the entire O'Bannon family and staff at this unfortunate hour.
Right, and for quite some time on the Associated Press National Wire, Kevin, throughout the afternoon, this was the lead story, and a reaction is coming in, as you mentioned, from all over.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We have a statement from Joe Andrew on the passing of Governor Frank O'Bannon. Of course, we'll cease immediately when we see the First Lady walk out. He is, of course, running to be the Democratic nominee for governor this time. The governor could not have run again, by the way, because he had already served 2 consecutive terms in office. This from Joe Andrew. My wife Ann and I went to extend our condolences to Judy, Polly, Jennifer, Jonathan. Let's stop here and watch the First Lady come out.
And if we could, listen in as well.
We're asking you questions this time.
A kiss from her Chief of Staff, Jonathan Swain. She's back in the van that will presumably take her back to what was their temporary home at Fort Benjamin Harrison. The governor's staff asked the people who want to send their condolences not go anywhere near the governor's private residence at this point. The family needs their privacy. We have set up a place on our own website where people can write in, and we will, of course, make that available. Back to the statement from Joe Andrew. It says, my wife Ann and I went to extend our condolences to Judy, Polly, Jennifer, and Jonathan. That is their
kids.
Those are their children. And the entire O'Bannon family.
Right.
We've lost a great governor, a true leader, and a dear friend. That is part of the statement from Joe Andrew.
I have one
Once
here
again,
also, you guys, from Senator Vi Simpson, just since we've got to keep this on the up and up here. Frank O'Bannon was the ultimate public servant, a man of many talents who could have chosen many paths. He chose a life of service and dedication to the people of Indiana because he loved Indiana and because he believed he could make a difference. State Senator Vi Simpson.
And Kevin, I have one here from Congressman Chris Chicola. Governor O'Bannon led the state of Indiana as a gentleman with dignity and true sincerity. My thoughts and prayers are with his family, and they can feel comforted knowing that he will leave a lasting legacy of genuine leadership.
We'll be on until 7 o'clock, and if you're just joining us, of course, this is coverage of the passing of Governor Frank O'Bannon and the swearing in of Indiana's 48th governor, Joe Kernan. And we will again play for you during this hour the remarkable speech that Joe Kernan gave just after being sworn in. He was not only a running mate of Governor O'Bannon and his lieutenant governor, but he was also a very dear friend. He lost a very dear friend today.
The State House is a very busy place. Let's go now to Chris Schubach standing by live. Chris?
Rory and Ann, as you saw, Mrs. O'Bannon in just the last few moments left here. Very solemn time, obviously, for her. And as you mentioned, took a lot of strength for her to be here for the swearing-in ceremony. Joining me now is her spokesperson, Jonathan Swain. Jonathan, she gave you a hug just before she left. Tell me what it's been like for her and the family.
Well, this has been certainly a very tough week for them, and certainly a tough day, but she wanted to be here today to show her support for Governor Kernan and for what he's going to be facing here in the next few months.
Yeah, talk a little bit more about that, because as we mentioned, it took a lot of strength, we all know, for her to come here. Governor O'Bannon just passing today, and it must say a lot for her confidence in the system and her confidence in now Governor Kernan.
Well, absolutely. She has a lot of confidence in the state of Indiana and the Constitution that laid all of this transfer of power out earlier in the week and then today also. And the Kernans are very good friends of the O'Bannons. They've worked together for so many years, and very much she wanted to let him know that she's with him all the way, and wants to give him her utmost support.
I know it's still very early in this process as well, but I know a lot of people will be wanting to know what type of services there will be, what type of memorial services available. Has any of that been thought out?
Well, those sorts of things were just starting to be thought of, but there certainly will be a public memorial service and other ways that the public can show their support for the family and for Governor O'Bannon. Absolutely.
And this also may be very early, but some speculation possibly that if Joe Kernan names a lieutenant governor, is it possible it could be Mrs. O'Bannon?
I have not heard that at all, and I can't imagine that would be possible.
Okay, Jonathan, thank you very much. I know you have things to do, and our condolences to you and your staff as well. We appreciate your help. Jonathan Swain is spokesperson for Mrs. O'Bannon, who just a few moments ago left here, felt it very important that she show her support for this system, show her support for now Governor Kernan, but now she'll obviously take some private time at her home with her family. Rory and Ann?
The next item, thank you, Chris. The next item of state business, of course, will be to, as Chris was alluding to, pick a lieutenant governor. And Joe Kernan has the first word on that, and probably the last word, based on what we were hearing from Bob Garden.
Much more coverage, another 40 minutes of coverage up till the top of the hour of the death of Governor O'Bannon and the swearing in of Joe Kernan as the governor of Indiana. Stay with us. Flags at the Indiana State House at half-staff mourning the loss of our state's 47th governor, Frank O'Bannon, who died earlier today in Chicago. And just about 20 minutes ago, you saw here live that historic moment in the State House Supreme Court chambers, Joe Kernan, the lieutenant governor, taking the oath of office as our new governor. The mechanisms in place, and we witnessed it
Yes, we did.
happen. Incredible to see.
And very soon we expect to have a lieutenant governor named. That is up to Joe Kernan to do, and he will of course work with the legislature on that. Perhaps the most remarkable thing is that Judy O'Bannon, after being at her governor's side, at her husband's side this morning, flew back here. She could have stayed at home in their home, but didn't. Came to support Joe Kernan. There's the hug right after he was sworn in to fill out Frank O'Bannon's term. They're very dear friends, but the strength that takes on a day like today. She didn't have to do it, but she did, and that doesn't surprise anybody because that's just the kind of person she is.
If you're just tuning us in, this is special coverage, obviously. We're going to continue through the top of the hour until 7 o'clock. NBC Nightly News with John Siegenthaler. You will see that at 7 o'clock tonight. Then at 7:30, we hope to break into regularly scheduled programming and bring you some segments at least of a news conference from the hospital in Chicago. We'll hear a little bit more about just what happened and how it shocked so many people, hoping for the best for the governor's condition, but it did worsen perhaps overnight or early this morning. His condition worsened.
Well, the now governor, Joe Kernan, tough to get used to saying it, but he did call for tomorrow to be a day of remembrance and celebration for Governor O'Bannon's life. To that end, we want you to watch this. It's about Governor O'Bannon's life.
Governor Frank O'Bannon grew up on the basketball courts in Corydon, Indiana. He continued his passion for the game as a player at Indiana University, where he received his bachelor's degree in 1952 and then his law degree 5 years later in '57.
As to what the important issues are that affect agriculture in Indiana.
Hoosiers were already familiar with the O'Bannon family name when Governor Frank O'Bannon filled his first political position in 1970. Voters elected him to his father's seat in the Indiana Senate, where he served for 18 years. In 1987, O'Bannon decided to try his hand at the governor's office. But before the campaign could even heat up, Evan Bayh got into the race, and O'Bannon dropped his bid to become Bayh's running mate.
I don't know a public official who is more respected and more honored and who has more integrity than Frank O'Bannon.
I, Frank L. O'Bannon.
I, Frank L. O'Bannon.
Do solemnly swear.
He served as lieutenant governor for 8 years. O'Bannon had been in public office for 26 years by the time he decided to run for governor of Indiana in 1996.
How are you?
I'm good. O'Bannon entered the race as an underdog to Indianapolis Mayor Stephen Goldsmith. On the campaign trail, playing on his down-home roots and Evan Bayh's record, he won the close election that year.
I've never seen so much flooding at the White River Alvarez Bank.
In his second term, he was barred from running again next year because of term limits. Frank O'Bannon married his college sweetheart, Judy. While the doctors gave the governor a clean bill of health at his regular checkups, in 2000, Mrs. O'Bannon confirmed her husband suffered from a medical condition called familial tremors. Doctors say the genetic condition is more of an annoyance and not related to a disease. The O'Bannons have 3 children and 4 grandchildren. Governor Frank O'Bannon was 73 years old.
Condolences are pouring in from all over the state and all over the nation. Of course, it's unclear at this time what kind of services there will be and when they will be. In a case like this, it is, which is very unusual in any state, but usually there would be a service of some kind in the capital city where he served. But of course, Frank and Judy O'Bannon are from Corydon. That's where their family home is, and their home church, and one can speculate there will also be something there.
Sure, and again, as you mentioned, Ann, the new governor asked, and this is a quote from his text immediately after being sworn in, he says, "Tomorrow, Sunday, I would ask that all over the state of Indiana we have a day of remembrance, a day of reflection, sorrow, and joy for a life that was lived to the fullest in the service of the people of Indiana."
Those words spoken just about 27 minutes ago, and when we come back from this break, you will see the swearing in of Joe Kernan and the remarkable and strong speech he gave right after being sworn in as the state's 48th governor.